Everyone. Thanks for joining today's webinar where we'll be talking about setting up Desk.com. Let's begin with some introductions. My name is Brian Sa. I'm the onboarding and training specialist here at Desk, and it's my job to create content for new customers to learn Desk. And today we have Barb. She's one of our customer success managers. Barb, do you want to give a brief introduction about yourself?
Yes, thanks, Ryan. Hi, everyone. My name is Barb Tassa. So I've been with Desk for about a year, and for the last year, I've been working with customers to help them get set up with Desk. And now I'm trying to bring that knowledge to everyone that is using Desk for the first time, and hopefully we'll give you guys some good content today.
All right, thanks, Barb. Before we begin, let's review some housekeeping items. Today's training portion of the webinar will be just about 45 minutes long. Um, During the training, if you do have questions, please feel free to type them into the GoToWebinar questions panel, and we'll be moderating that throughout the webinar. If we do find some questions that we deem might be helpful or or some of those commonly asked questions, we may save those to the end where we'll have a Q&A session where you guys can feel free to, again, type your questions in the GoToWebinar questions panel. Barb will answer those. Some she may actually walk through in the desk system and kind of show you guys if she thinks it's a good example. Also, today's webinar is being recorded. So after the webinar, if you do want to maybe watch the video and side by side set up your own desk account, we will be emailing that out. Also, if you can't stay with us for the entire time, we will also send out the recording. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. I'll hand it off to Barb.
Thank you, Brian. All right, so everyone, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm really looking forward to talking to you guys about Desk. So as I understand, most of you guys have recently purchased Desk, and you probably have some questions on how to make it work for your team. Today, what we'll do is actually cover the basic setup. I'll take you through a setup journey and address some common configuration questions that I typically get when I'm working with our customers. And specifically, our agenda, what you see here for today is, one, we'll talk about key business questions that's important for your team to discuss before you even start changing anything in Desk. Number two, I'll walk through an actual setup demo for a fictitious bicycle shop. Step three, we'll talk about what you can do beyond the basic setup with Desk to give you kind of a picture of what the roadmap could look like. In step four, we'll recap everything that we did, and then step five, we'll talk about next steps that you can take to get your Desk environment set up, and of course, pointing to some great resources that we have at Desk for pretty much all the questions that you're thinking about. And of course, like Brian said, we'll have plenty of time for questions, Q&A, and I hope you guys answer or feel comfortable asking anything that you have on your minds, even if it seems like a silly or a small question. Feel free to take advantage of this opportunity to ask those questions. All right, so as you've probably noticed if you've already gone into the admin settings of Desk, it is very configurable, which could be a little bit intimidating when you're approaching the system for the first time. So one of the things I really like to think about is the customer experience that you want to be able to provide for your customers. So when you're thinking of Desk, do you want to have a basic configuration that will allow you to answer, let's say, just your customers' emails? I think of this as like the getting started A to B version, where it's very simple. I'm sticking to a single channel, and it really helps me get up and going and start answering customer questions. On the other hand, I also may want to actually just take my time and really customize Desk before I start using it with my customers. In this particular advanced version, you may want to have a full support center set up, a customized contact form, and you may want to support multiple social media channels to respond to your customer inquiries. So that choice of what fidelity you want to launch with is definitely up to you. Today, what I'll focus on is that getting started A to B version, so it's going to be the simple setup. And before I even dive into Desk, I usually like to start with these 5 questions. Number one, what types of customers do you have? Why do your customers contact you? What methods or channels do your customers use to contact you? How many inquiries do you get each day? And who's actually responsible for handling those inquiries? And lastly, but probably most importantly, what are the pain points or problems that you're trying to solve? So let's say I run a local bike shop called Bay Cycles. As an example, I will walk through these 5 questions for this business. In Bay Cycles, I have 2 types of customers. So my first customer type is cyclists who buy my products, and the second type are the vendors who supply my shop. The main pain point or problem that I'm facing at Bay Cycles is a lack of visibility into why my customers are contacting me. And I also don't have a good way to show data or reporting about our support efforts to the management team. So I took these questions to my team, and I discovered some pretty interesting information. So what my staff tell me is that the cyclists, who are one of my customer types, typically contact us for 3 main reasons: bike sales, service, and events. For bike types, they are asking usually about cruisers, commuters, and road bikes. And the event types that they're interested in are the Friday Fun rides, the monthly 20K rides, and the annual race. They contact us by email and phone, and our customers actually have a dedicated email address, baycycles101@gmail.com, and these inquiries are typically handled just by the staff. So I also think about my vendors as customers. Because I want to be able to get back to them in a timely fashion, I'm also going to be responding to them in Desk. And so vendors are typically Trek, Bianchi, and Mission Bikes. They contact us about new products, order confirmations, and promotions. These are the bike models we carry for them. They contact us by email and phone. And our vendors have their own specific email address, which is baycycles101 plus vendors@gmail.com, and these particular inquiries are handled by management. So based on this kind of overview of my business, just thinking through these 5 questions, what I'm going to do next is create a data model that I can then take to configure in Desk. So think of it this way: if a cyclist contacts me, they may be asking about our events, and specifically the Friday night fun rides. For example, they may be interested in where and when the ride starts, ends, and how long it is. If a vendor contacts me, on the other hand, they may be wanting to tell us about a new promotion that they're having on Mission bikes featuring the Revalencia model. So for my bike shop, these are the main things that I get contacted about, and this is exactly the information that I want to capture for reporting purposes. Everything that you see highlighted in blue, so like customer type, contact reason, these main categories are going to be the main things that I capture in what are called custom fields, and we'll talk about them a little bit more in just a few minutes. So let's also look at the bird's eye view of how Desk works. If I imagine my customer, Josh, sending me an email, Desk enables me to process Josh's email based on its attributes. And by attributes, I mean things like what is his email address? Which email address is he actually emailing? What is his subject line in the email? What is the body of the email? Anything that is unique about that particular interaction is an attribute that I can then use and use what's called automation, or the Desk rules engine, to be able to process that email. And one of those things I may be doing is taking the email that comes from Josh, since I know he's a cyclist, and I can capture all of the information Josh is emailing or asking about in custom fields. Likewise, I can assign it to a specific team member like Emily, or just the staff group that she belongs to. So when Emily then responds back to Josh, Desk can actually change the look and feel of that email by using what are called email reply templates. So that will help me really brand the email and the customer experience that Josh gets. So now that I'm prepared with my data model and an overview of how Desk works, let's talk about what I actually need to do to set up Desk. So I've outlined 10 steps here that we're going to be doing today. In step 1, what I'm going to do is enable just my email channel. I know this is probably really basic, but I can always turn on the other channels like phone or other social media channels in Desk, but I'm for now just going to use email. In step 2, based on those business needs that we talked about, the categories like customer type and contact reason, I'll take those and create custom fields so my team can easily capture information about customer inquiries. In step 3, I'm going to add a colleague into Desk and create a group. So when I typically set up Desk, I'll add one other team member to help me test. I won't add all of the other team members just yet. I can do that at the end. In step 4, I'm going to leverage the Desk automation engine and the rules engine by creating an inbound rule to help me categorize and assign cases. In step 5, what I'm going to do is then customize the inbox view for my team so I can clearly show the vendor and cyclist emails separately. And how I do that is by configuring what are called filters. In step 6, I'm going to turn on the auto acknowledgement, which is an immediate response that Desk can send back to your customers that contact you so they know that you have received their inquiry. In step 7, I'm going to create a macro. It's essentially a canned message for common questions that can do a little bit more. So we'll show you what that looks like. In step 8, I'm going to turn on Desk email notifications. And those are notifications that I can enable for new interactions. So that way, if my staff are not always using Desk, they can get an email notification when a new customer email comes in. In step 9, what I'll do is actually just some testing, and I would love your participation on this step as well. In step 10, what I'll do is add the remaining team and actually connect my real support email with email forwarding, and we'll talk about that as well. All right, so now we're ready to get started in Desk. So as an administrator on your site, you guys have probably already come into the admin setup area, and you have control over pretty much everything that Desk allows you to configure. At the top here, these tabs, that's where most of your automation is going to happen. This gear here, this is the general site-wide settings where you can change things like your company name, security settings, and any other integrations that you'll be using. And if you've also looked at the agent view, let's check that out. So what I have is some cases here, and then these are the filters that I mentioned previously. So this is where all my emails are going to come in. And the email area is here, the case information is here, and I see some customer and then company information on this case. So let's go back into admin, and the first thing I'm going to do is manage my channels so that only my email channel is turned on. So how do I do that? In the channel settings, I see I have the support center, email, chat, phone, Twitter, and Facebook. So for now, what I'll do is turn everything off by going to advanced settings, disabling that channel. I'm going to disable chats. Let's make sure that's off. So it's off already. Phone is off. Twitter, advanced settings is off. Facebook, advanced settings is off. Great. So when I go back into my case area, if I start a new case, I should only see the email option, and that's exactly what I want for now. Great, so step one is done. I've just only enabled the email channel and nothing else. In the next step, what I'll do is create custom fields. And custom fields were those categories for my shop. So I'll go to cases, and then custom fields. So I've already added a couple of them in just to save from typing. So the number one reason that I'm looking, custom field I'm looking for is customer type. So it's a list type custom field. Customer type is the name of the custom field. That's going to be visible for my team. Key is the same name, but that's the one that gets stored in the database. So I usually type it lowercase, separated by an underscore. And the data that I add here, I can just click the green button and add those options in for cyclist and vendor. So those are my two customer types. And the same thing for contact reason. So I'll have a list type with all of the options that my team was telling me that they get contacted about. So events, service, bike sales, and then new products, order confirmations, and promotions. All right, so I put in pretty much all of the custom fields that I care about. And the next step, what I'll do is organize this view so I can see what it looks like. So when I open, let's just create a new case under my name. And let's see what the case looks like. So right now there's nothing in the reply area because I just created a new case. On the right-hand side, what I see are the case details. And these are the custom fields that I have here. So if I don't like, or if I don't like the order, or if I want to basically hide some of these custom fields, like email source, I'm probably going to hide. I don't want to show which email address was sent to just on the custom field. I can actually change the view. So I'll go into the admin settings and go into an area called Next Gen Case Layouts. I've created one called staff, so this is for my staff team. And what I can do is just remove things that I don't want to see from the actual list. So now when I make sure that I am assigned to this custom field or custom layout, I'm going to update it. If I go back into Desk, the agent view, hit refresh, I should see that layout be updated. So now I can see that I only want customer type, contact reason, bike type, event type, and bike model. So that's perfect. I can also create a second case layout since I have two teams. I have the staff team and I have the management team. So what I would do is just add case layout. Let's call this management. And for this team, what I want to see for custom fields are definitely the customer type. So let's drag that onto the case. I do want to see the contact reason. And I want all of the manufacturer level information, as well as bike type and bike model. Great. So here I've seen they're kind of just half width, but I want to actually make them full width across that case layout area. So I'll just go into that pencil to edit and make them full width. All right, so let's see what this one looks like. I just have to remember to add myself into this custom field layout so I can see this particular case layout. Just so you guys know, you can only be assigned to one case layout. So just think about what you need to see if you have different teams. Okay, so here I see customer type, contact reason, manufacturer, bike type, and bike model. So that's perfect. So those are the things I want to track if I'm on the management team. So I'm going to just assign myself back into the staff team because that's where I'll be spending most of my time. And in regards to case layouts, you can create multiple case layouts. You can just have a single case layout. It's really up to you and how many teams you plan on bringing into Desk and how different their particular workflows are. So next what I'll do is I'll add a team member and create a group. So I go to team users and then I'm going to add Brian. Oops, Brian. To select what role I add new people, I can think about what I want them to do. So if Brian is on my staff, he's going to be answering questions that customers send in. So I'm going to assign him to the agent role. Let's click add here. And I also want to create two groups. So I want to be able to differentiate the staff team from the management team. So I'll go to groups, add group. Let's call this staff. I'm going to assign Brian to that. And then I'll add a management team group too. Okay, great. So the next thing I'm going to do is start managing my future inbound cases. So if I go to cases, I'll see this rules engine here. And the rules engine gives me a lot of different options based on what type of interaction I want to influence. So the inbound interaction, for example, is a common one because it will help me run rules that will organize cases that are coming into Desk, whether it's for the first time or the 100th time. An outbound interaction will run, let me go back here, an outbound interaction will run when I'm actually sending an email out of Desk. And likewise, when I go down the list, the most common ones I'm looking at typically are inbound interactions, case updated, case resolved actions, as well as time rules. Case updated rules are great if you want something to happen when one of your team members is working on the case, they add a note and they save the case, or they add a label, send a reply. Anytime a case is saved, it's considered updated, so those rules will run at that point in time. So let's create an inbound rule to help us identify the cyclist emails from the vendor emails. So one of the things that I told you earlier is that I have different email addresses for my cyclists and for my vendors. And I do this on purpose in most cases if I can, so I can very easily separate out those emails. So what I'll do is I'll create an inbound rule first for cyclist emails. And I'm going to look at cases that are only coming in for the first time. And the way I can distinguish that is by looking at the case status, where the case status is new. A case can only be new in Desk one time. That's when it comes in and it has never been opened before. Once one of my team members clicks on a case, the status will change from new to open, and it can never go back into new. And even if a customer were to email me back a second or third time on that same case, it would just be in the new status and never in the open again. So this will only run the first time a case comes into Desk. The second thing I'm looking for is which email address the customer actually emailed. So whether they put an email to or email copy line, I'm first looking at the cyclists that are emailing baycycles101@gmail.com. So that is that cyclist-specific email address that my teams have. And I sometimes will only look at the to line, but if my customers have a habit of sometimes copying instead of putting that specific email address in the to line, I'll usually want to catch it with this any condition. So that way, whether they email to or they email CC, this rule will catch that case. So the rule action that I'm going to set in this particular case is I'm going to set a custom field that I created called email source. And I'm going to set the email source to the cyclist email address. So I'm looking for set case email source is baycycles101. And the second thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to assign it to the group called staff, since staff usually handle the cyclist emails. So let's look for set case assign group to the staff team. I'm going to enable this rule, and when I click update, I'm not going to see anything happen right away because nobody is emailing me yet on this particular email address. But the way to read this, if you've created a rule before, is if the case status is new and the email to contains basecycles101@gmail.com, or the email CC contains basecycles101@gmail.com, then my rule action is to set the case email source custom field to basecycles101@gmail.com, and I'm going to set the case assigned group to staff. So now that I've set these custom fields in the back, I also want to show specific cases to my staff team. And I do that by creating filters for a specific team. So in this case, I'm going to call this cyclist emails, and I'm going to surface any cyclist emails that come in through the filter. Since what I just did was I set the case custom field called email source to the cyclist email address, I can look for that particular unique attribute. So let's look for email source is basecycles101@gmail.com. I'm not going to do anything else, so I don't care what state it is in. I just want to show it if it's a cyclist email. Default sort, you can change how you show cases. I typically sort by the receive date, so I can see the most recent cases coming in first. The permission to this filter for now, I'm going to show to all users, but down the road, if my staff are handling all these cases, I just may want to make that visibility only to the staff team, but for now, I'll just make it visible to all users. Once I enable this filter and click update, when I go back into my agent's inbox, I will now see that there is a cyclist email filter set. Okay, so I'm going to do the exact same thing with a rule and a filter for my vendor emails. Since the rules are going to be very similar, I can simply copy this rule and then modify it to make it applicable to vendors. Likewise, I'm looking for where the case status is new, and the email to or email CC are going to contain basecycles101 plus vendors at gmail.com. So let me update that here. And then the rule action is going to be different. I'm going to set the case email source to basecycles101 plus vendors at gmail.com. And since these cases are going to be handled by the management team, I'm likewise going to set the case assigned group to management. I turn on this rule and click update. And I'll go up to filters and create a corresponding filter for vendor emails. In the same way, I can duplicate this filter and then modify the details since they are pretty similar. So this will be vendor emails, and the email source is going to be basecycles101 plus vendors at gmail.com. The default sort I'll keep as receive date descending. I want this permission visibility for this filter to be for all users, and I will enable this filter. When I click update, and I go back into my inbox, I see now I have a vendor emails inbox, filter in my inbox. Okay, so now that I've started to do a little bit of automation with my inbound rules, I'm also going to enable the auto acknowledgement, which tells my customers that we've received their interaction. So if you go into your rules section under inbound rules, you will see that you actually have an auto acknowledgement rule in your inbox that's been created, and all you have to do is turn it on. So this should be in everybody's desk instance as a built-in rule. And if you open this, the way to read this is the case status is new, and hours since last auto acknowledgement are greater than or equal to 24. Then the rule action is to send the email auto acknowledgement that has the system default theme. So essentially what this rule action is telling us is that if a customer is sending an email in for the first time and they have not yet received an auto acknowledgement in the last 24 hours, then the rule action is to send them an auto acknowledgement. The reason that 24 hours is here is to prevent email wars if you see an auto out of office reply from your customers. So you can change this to maybe 12 hours or 1 hour, but the point is to have some kind of time period here, and usually 24 is what we recommend. So that way you don't have a bunch of cases created because the auto acknowledgement is replying back to the out of office reply. And likewise, right now I'm going to be happy with a default theme for this auto acknowledgement. But if at a later time I want to add more branding or fonts or logos into the theme, I can go and modify that as well and create a new theme to send out. So let's hit update, and now we know that the auto acknowledgement is enabled. Now, last bit of productivity in step 7, what we're going to do is create a macro. So macros, kind of the simplest way to think about them is those pre-canned messages that will say, thanks for sending us an email, but they can do a lot more. So in my case, I've created one for cyclist event Friday night fun ride. So this is to make it easier for my staff members to respond to cyclists who are asking about our Friday night rides. And in this case, because they usually ask us about the event details themselves, I've created a quick reply, which is that canned message that I can send, the same information over and over again to multiple customers. And rather than writing either just hey there, I can actually customize the name with what's called a liquid variable. So Desk has a whole system of liquid variables that allow you to dynamically pull certain values that are stored, like the customer's first name, email address, last name, or anything else that you save in a custom field. So here I'm just looking for the customer first name, and I'm going to tell them where the event is. Then down here, I'm also doing something a little bit more to help me from a reporting perspective. So I know that the people that are asking me about these events are going to be cyclists. So what I've done is actually enabled this macro to set the customer type to cyclist, so my staff member doesn't have to do it. Since this is going to be about the event, and specifically the event type is the Friday Fun Ride, I can actually select all these custom fields with a single macro. Macros can also be visible to different teams. So right now, I'll just make this visible to all users and then enable this macro. So now when I click update, that macro will be available for my staff members to use when they're replying out to customers. And one more thing that we'll do before we test is turn on the notification for new cases. This is also a rule that's out of the box in your Desk instance. So all you need to do is turn this on. And what's going to happen is that your staff members or any of the users that are in your Desk instance will get a notification if a new case comes into Desk. If you find that most of your team is actually working out of Desk all the time or they're using the mobile app, you may not want to spam them with too many emails, but if they're not always in there, it could be a good practice to start off and notify them by email that a new case has come in. Okay, so now it's actually time to test. At this point, I would love to invite you guys to send us an email address, or send us an email to my test site, and let's go over to the channels, and I'll show you what the email address is. So out of the box, Desk provides you with an inbound email address that's actually a valid email address. So if you can email support@zzz-basecycles2.desk-mail.com, this will actually create a case into Desk. And Brian, if you're on the line, if you could actually add this to the GoToWebinar window, you can just basically copy and paste that email address into any of your email clients and send me a test email message. So we'll wait a couple minutes for you guys to do that. This is the participation part. So when you do send me an email to this email address, within a minute you should also get back the auto acknowledgement that we turned on. So it'll be good for you guys to see what that looks like. So while you guys are just taking the time to send me the email, let's talk about how you can actually connect your own email addresses that customers email into Desk. So there's 3 ways to do it. Number 1, you can actually use this particular support email address as your real one for customer support if you would like. This is a valid email address. It comes out of the box. It's available for everybody that is using Desk. The second way to do it is to connect with the IMAP connection. So since I use Gmail, I would just basically put my Gmail address and then the password, and then continue to actually connect my email that way. The third way to connect your email is through what's called email forwarding. And you can get to that right from the dashboard of your admin area. There's a button that says Set up Email Forwarding. And so what email forwarding actually does is it's rather than connecting directly with IMAP, you'll be going into either your Google, your Outlook Mail, whatever email service you're using, and you will be forwarding your emails to Desk. We generally recommend using the email forwarding method because it actually has the fastest connection to send your emails into Desk. IMAP can sometimes take a few minutes for an email to come in, but Postmark is usually really, Postmark with the email forwarding is really fast. So this is a cool little guide that will actually walk you through how to do your email forwarding, and it probably won't take more than 5 minutes to set that up. All right, so it looks like we have a couple of test cases, which is awesome. So thanks everybody for sending it in. So if let me actually just go back. So what you guys see is everything that's come in that has a solid blue dot, that is a new case. So when a case is new, it has that new and the solid blue. When I've opened the case, it goes into just like the blue circle outline. And if I've actually sent somebody an email, it goes into the pending stage. So if I send Julianne back an email, what I'll do is I can just type a reply that way, or I can actually use that macro I just created. So if Julianne was asking me about the Friday fun rides for cyclists, I can use that macro I created by clicking it here, or I can use a shortcut, which is kind of cool. It's pound, and I can start typing the name of this. Let me see how I spell that. Cyclist. It's not coming up. That's kind of interesting. Okay, well, I'll just use the macro this time. Usually it comes up right away, so I would click Cyclist Event Friday Night Fun Ride, so that's the macro we just created. And when I put that in, what it does is actually fills in Julianne's name, so that's using the liquid variable. It has my reply, and it also actually fills in these custom fields on the side. So she's a cyclist, and then the event is, the contact reason is the event. So let's send an update, and if I want to see it go out, I can unselect that close tab, and I'll hit send an update. And she should get an email in just a minute. So that is how you can use a macro, and let me just change my actual case layout, so I'm in the staff one. So go to cases, next gen case layouts. I'm going to make sure I'm in the staff one. Okay, and I should see event type here. Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. Yeah, so the event type is set as Friday Fun Rides. So there we go. That's how you guys would use normal email replies. So you can just hit reply and type your own message, or you can use macros as well. All right, so at this point, that's the majority of the desk setup that I'll go through today. And let's jump back into the presentation. So now that you've actually set up a basic desk configuration, let's talk about some of the things that you can do. So if going back to Josh, if Josh previously sent you an email to your support email address, but now perhaps you may want to enable the support site. So if Josh likes to answer his own questions, rather than emailing somebody right away, you may actually want to take advantage of the out-of-the-box support center or knowledge base that Desk provides. So you can create articles and other commonly asked questions that your customers have. If that still doesn't answer Josh's question, you can enable the contact form, which is also on your support center. Your contact form can be really highly customized. You can even ask your custom fields, you can surface them onto your contact form. So you can ask Josh to describe why he's actually contacting you, rather than having your agents have to fill out that custom field later on. So regardless of how the case comes in to Desk, whether it's directly through an email or through the contact form on the support center, you can still use all the rules like sending the auto acknowledgement, which you can later customize. You can still assign it to different team members, regardless of where it's coming from. And then if your staff, like Emily in this case, was emailing back and forth with Josh a number of times, I may also want to enable the customer satisfaction survey to really get a handle on what our customers think of our support. So I can enable what's called CSAT, or the customer satisfaction survey, that with the email that's actually is resolving the case, it will give them an option to select from a smiley face and tell us how we did for our support. So it's actually pretty easy to turn on. I'll show you that in a second. So when I go into my cases area, I see this last option here called customer satisfaction. So when I turn on customer satisfaction, if I want to change the question, I can do that. I can choose when this actually is surfaced, so with every resolution or with the first resolution. And I can choose how many smiley faces my customers get to select. I can also ask one additional question. If I don't want that and I just want the smiley face, that's totally fine as well. So let's give you guys a quick view of how that looks. So I'll send back a couple of replies to people. So let's use my macro. Here it is. Okay, this time it worked with the quick reply. So I'm going to not only just have that macro in here, but I'm going to hit send, update, and resolve. And since I've turned on my customer satisfaction survey, if I reply back to you, you should see that smiley face as well. So let's do that. All right. Okay, so how many more do I have here? I'll do a couple more. Tommy. And let's see, Brandy. Okay, I think that's everyone. Okay, perfect. So that will be customer satisfaction. All right, so let's talk about the summary. What did we go over today? So we spent a lot of time organizing and deciding what information to capture in our cases by mapping out our data structure and creating those custom fields. We then created some rules to assign cases. We created a macro to make it really fast for our team to respond. And we did some sample testing and got some cases into Desk. So what I didn't do is I didn't go through those final steps of actually connecting my real support email address or adding additional support team members, but that's something that you guys can do. It shouldn't take too long, but it's always good to test with a small team first. And then we talked about some of the things that you can do next after your basic setup. So what you see here is basically the summary of those 10 steps that we did today. We also have kind of a reason why you can consider implementing it, as well as a Desk article link, so that way if you need a little bit more information, it's a step-by-step guide on how to do each of those steps. and some optional advanced feature setup when you're ready to do so. Some things you may be thinking about: security, agent settings, team permissions, really digging into advanced rules and customizing and automating as much as you can. We also have a lot of information about how to really customize anything that is customer facing from a message point of view, as well as the support center. So the support center you can make into as customized and as branded to your site as possible. Likewise, we have a few links about business insights, which are the reports that you can see in Desk, as well as Desk Connect if you're a Salesforce user. In terms of resources, we have a great support center at supports.desk.com. If you haven't been there yet, please visit. There is I don't know how many articles we have, but probably hundreds to thousands, as well as the video support center, which has webinars like this recorded there, as well as other videos to help you through any configuration or best practices. And if you want to see how some other customers have configured their support site, I have a link here that will show you some examples of other support centers. If you do get stuck at any point configuring Desk, we definitely want you to reach out. We have a great support team that you can email or phone at any time, and they will definitely help you out with any configuration questions you have. So lastly, I definitely want to take some time and answer any questions you have.
All right, thanks, Barb. So once again, if you guys do have questions, please feel free to type them into the GoToWebinar questions panel, and we'll get those answered. Looks like we do have one already. First question, some of our agents aren't filling out all the fields we want to capture. How do I make a field required for our agents?
Awesome. So that is definitely a very common question that we get about configurations. So we don't actually have something specific called a required field in Desk. So if I wanted, for example, my team to always fill out cyclist, right now I have to use the rules engine to be able to do that. So let's walk through how that works. It's actually quite straightforward. So I'll go to the rules engine, and if you remember, we talked about when different rules run. I specifically want to check if a field has been selected when my team member is trying to resolve a case. So I'll go to the case resolved section and create a new rule that says customer type required. So if I definitely, for tracking purposes, want to know how many cases are customers submitting versus vendors, this is a perfect rule for me to implement. So what I'll do is I'll say I only really want this rule to run when the case status is resolved, meaning that the agent is clicking that resolve button, and the case field called customer type is blank. So let's look for that case customer type. This is sometimes a little bit hard to find. Where did it go? Here we go. Customer type. Customer type is cyclist. Oh, sorry, is blank. Okay, is blank. There we go. So what I'm basically asking the Desk rules engine to check is if my agent has clicked resolved, but this particular field is not filled out, then what I want the rule action to be is to add a case label that reminds the team to add customer type as a label so they know what they're missing. But also, I don't want it to go into the resolved state, so what I'll do is actually change the case status back to the open state, so it'll stay in their queue. When I enable that and I click update, let's see how that works. So this one is in the pending status. So if I were to actually just, let's say, add a note, right now we'll do testing case resolved rule. And if I don't actually have this customer type selected, and I were to, let me just actually update that first to make sure the customer type is not selected. But now I'm actually going to hit the resolved button. What's going to happen is the case status is now going to switch to open, and this label called add customer type appears for my team. And I can actually see that label as well when I go into the inbox view. So I can see labels really clearly, and they're good signals for actions that need to be taken. So that's a perfect way that you can make sure that the information you need is captured. And if I now select cyclist and I hit update and resolve, the status then now goes back into the resolved. I can either just click to close, delete that label, or I can actually write another rule that will remove that label once the customer type field is selected. So that is how you would do required fields, and you can do that for any number of custom fields that you have on your case.
All right, great. Thanks, Barb. Looks like we have another question. Are we able to upload an HTML template for all our emails? If so, where can we do this?
Yeah, that sounds like a really great way to brand Desk. So to brand anything, you have to choose what thing you're branding. So in this case, sounds like you want to have emails look and feel a certain way. So you go into the channel section under email. So we have two things that you want to probably select. One is reply themes and one is auto acknowledgements. So auto acknowledgements are, if you sent a case in, then you know what that looks like out of the box. You can actually create a new theme for an auto acknowledgement. So let's say if I just create test, what I get is this HTML body that I can go in and then style with HTML and CSS. So this is, I don't know if you can directly upload everything from your existing style guide to here, because we do have what you see here as liquid variables. So anything that's in these double curly braces are called liquid variables. So you may not want to delete those because they actually contain specific information like the auto-acknowledged message that you'd get, as well as things like who the message was sent to, the customer email, the case ID number as well. So when you're editing anything that's the auto acknowledgement or the actual email itself, so the email themes are set in the reply themes. So this is, it looks pretty similar. So if I open that up, it has that HTML body, and I can go in there and modify the styling with HTML and CSS. So just to kind of extend on that as well, so if you're already starting to think about your email look and feel, you definitely want to spend some time here, but you also may start thinking about your support center. And web themes in the support center actually work in a very similar way, where once you've enabled your support center, you can go and change it to match your brand. The look and feel tab, like you can have your logos, your styling, and you can do all of that with HTML and CSS as well in the advanced editor. So if I edit in source mode, I get the entire file that I can then go in and modify. This does take a little bit, I guess, of, I'm not sure how long it takes, because it will depend on what kind of branding that you're trying to do, but it's the same type of idea between the web themes as well as the email reply areas. Very good question, though.
All right, thanks, Barb. Looks like we do have one more here. I want to create subcategories for our product type so we can track what questions are coming in. How can I do this?
Yeah, absolutely. So Desk has these cool things called dependencies. And in order to use dependencies, I first do have to have those custom fields created. So if I really want to make sure, customer type will then show me the contact reason that's only relevant to that group, what I can do is create a dependency that says, I want the customer type to control what I see in the contact reason option list. And just kind of a reminder. So right now, if I were just to look at it, my customer type has cyclist and vendor, and my contact reason has event, service, bike sales, new products, order confirmations, and promotions. So this sort of mixes both what the cyclists will ask about and the vendors. So I can use dependencies to then specifically show the cyclist contact reason options and then the vendor contact reason options. So if I hit save, I go back into the case and refresh my view. Now if I choose customer type as cyclist, oh, that did not work. Let me make sure I save that. Oh, yes, there we go. This is something I sometimes forget to do, is even though I created something, I have to always turn it on as well. So let's go and refresh that. All right, so now if I select cyclist, there we go. So I see that my options for the contact reason have actually been limited just to the cyclist specific options. Likewise, if I then choose vendor, then I get vendor specific options like new products, order confirmations, and promotions. So you can use dependencies for a lot of things. If you have a lot of logic and you want to capture a lot of that information, you can make your team, your agent lives a lot easier by building these dependencies, and you can have up to 4 levels of dependencies. So if customer type cascades down to a couple more areas, which it would in my case as the bike shop, I can build multiple dependencies that say then the next one can be contact reason, controlling, let's say, what did I have? Probably event type in this case. So I can go in and build more dependencies that way. All right, and that's how dependencies work.
All right, thanks, Barb. Looks like we're just about out of time. Just wanted to kind of reiterate what Barb was saying in terms of reaching out to support. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out at support@desk.com. Again, the Support Center has a lot of great articles and videos.